Good afternoon. My name's Gerry Brennan. I'm the founder and chief exec of global workspace management software company Cloudbooking. And I'm delighted to welcome you to the first episode of our brand new webinar series, Revolutionising Real Estate. As businesses worldwide grapple with increasingly complex demands of the modern workplace, Cloudbooking has had the privilege of playing a key part in the remarkable real estate revolution undertaken by many companies around the world, including many of our own clients. Businesses have reacted in very different ways and continue to do so. Some companies have struggled to adapt to the changing working habits and the demands of staff, while others have challenged the status quo, embraced significant change, and excelled in their mission to breathe new life into their workplaces, where collaboration, innovation, and a profound sense of purpose flourish for employees. It's an ever-changing landscape, and we want to help our clients, our colleagues, and our friends make sense of it by engaging with clients and partners who have adapted really well to this change. In this first episode, I'm speaking with Zaid Furreedan, Group Director of Real Estate and Workplace at Experian. Zaid, thanks so much for joining me today. I really do appreciate it.
No, thank you, Gerry, for the invitation and also for the opportunity to kind of just to share some of our progress and how we work together.
Good stuff. Thanks, Zaid. Zaid and I will focus on the success of Experian's global transformation master plan and explore together the challenges they encountered when striving to deliver a new workforce strategy for the hybrid age, whilst taking big strides towards sustainability through real estate cost optimization and carbon efficiency. You and your team at Experian are at the heart of a real estate transformation project that we at Cloudbooking believe sets the standard for how multinational organizations should adapt to this new world of work. But before we dive into the detail of that, what would you say are the key drivers of your ongoing change program?
So it's a really good question, Gerry, and one that we've grappled with as a company for the last few years. Just quickly before I go on to onto my response for that, it's really nice to hear that you see us as market leading in this space. And again, that was one of our drivers. The key to our driver is really our people. When people have often thought about real estate and workplace on this side of the desk, it's always to do with buildings, it's always to do with assets and so forth. And I think we've really wanted to turn that 180 towards really putting the employee or our people at the very center of what we do, and then the strategy builds out from there. And that means real collaboration with the likes of HR, our business leaders, and our wider leadership teams to make sure that any changes or any any kind of thought-provoking changes in terms of transformation that we're looking to bring really has a sense check against that employee and people, and that has enabled us to bring people along the journey.
Okay, really interesting. I totally understand what you're saying. It's a key driver for, I think, for any business that's going to thrive, and really embrace this new hybrid world of working. First and foremost, it's got to be how you treat the guys that work for you, right? And even as a small company, we have like so many benefits in our employee benefits package for our staff because we work remotely. We don't connect with each other as often as perhaps we'd like to, although we do have a lot of connection going on each day. I always insist on people having their cameras on when they have calls, that kind of thing. So I totally get it. I'm fully on board with that, and I agree with you. Do you find inspiration from other businesses? What other transformation projects in real estate have you seen that have impressed you? Since sort of coming out of the pandemic and adapting to this new world of work.
So recently we went out to tender for our workplace services, and part of the brief was we want to create a world-class environment. And that is a vision both in the UK and globally. And that was part of the RFP that we went out. That enabled us to visit a whole bunch of different clients and a whole bunch of different sites. the one site or the one organization, and again, we ended up selecting them as being our partner at CBRE, was their site in Bond Street, Henrietta House. And what they'd created in that environment was it was phenomenal in terms of a community. They had a host set up. They had a workplace experience app. They had on-site gym sessions. Their client areas were clearly defined in terms of how they wanted clients to be treated as well as their employees, and it was it was really breaking down some of those barriers around what an office looks like towards trending to what a world-class environment looks like. And we said to them, that's exactly what we want. We want to be the top of the tree. We really want our people to feel as if that they're being looked after by the organization the moment you walk through the door. The other aspects that I think I've seen are landlords are really are really thinking about different types of fit outs, different types of services that they provide. So we recently went to a building in Bishopsgate, and what they're looking to create there is a real buzz around street food in terms of their offering on site, increased bike storage, looking at different ways to accommodate sort of small and larger collaboration type meetings in it. So again, I think different parts of the businesses in our world. When I say real estate, you've got landlords, you've got service providers, you've got facilities management companies, you've got sort of owner occupiers and occupiers. And I think everyone's trying to find a different way to tap into our environment is better than yours, and I think that's only great for all individuals being part of this organization.
Yeah, no, I think there is a real battle on, isn't there, too? And I think it's all about trying to become the employer of choice, for the next generation entering the workforce. And people have so much more option to kind of move around now. The days of staying in a job for ages, I think, are long behind us. And now I think it's all about the employers that facilitate hybrid working in the most effective way possible for their staff. Yeah, totally agree with that. When pushing through global transformation programs at the top of an enterprise corporation like Experian, is it often a struggle to fit process around people rather than the other way around?
That is that's a $64 million question, right? When it comes to trying to invoke change in an organization, my response is yes and no. I think when you have a clear vision from a real estate standpoint and from a what are we trying to achieve, I think that's really step one. Step two is having those execs and those senior leaders bought into that vision and really tying into the business, the business drivers, the people drivers, the technology drivers, and coming together as one. And what we launched was 3 years ago was our Global Future of Work program, and that was really the foundation to all the principles that we wanted to introduce to all our regions. So things like treating everyone fairly, a sort of diversity inclusion is huge in terms of the focus sort of around that as a business. We had 4 key drivers around our strategic intents, which is about innovation and business performance, attracting and retaining top talent, cultivating our culture towards a consistent platform, and lastly was around environmental and kind of cost optimization, which we'll probably come on to later, but also linked to the sustainability piece. So we've really got some high targets in terms of our sustainability piece, and the key reason is that it means a lot to people, and and also a lot of people are asking these questions of us as a business, particularly around our employees, our investors, our clients, and so we really want to make sure that we coordinate a really consistent message to externally to those people.
Cool. Yeah, it's really interesting, actually. As you know, I'm a great advocate for increased energy efficiency in buildings. It's a big thing of mine. So I really want to touch on that with you in a little bit more detail shortly. That at Experian, you, Zaid, you're taking the lead on a strategic 5-year program that began in 2021. So how difficult is it to keep that project flexible so it can continuously evolve and adapt in such a rapidly changing world? You know, things are moving around us at a crazy pace. You know, I wonder when this will ever settle down.
Yeah, I mean, you know, I'm going to be totally honest and you know, a little bit vulnerable on your you know, on your discussion here. It was a scary time, right? Because COVID had hit. There was all these reports around, you know, the death of the workplace, and everyone's going to be working from home, and there was a lot of uncertainty during that period from a real estate perspective. And you know, we had to, you know, obviously close down buildings due to, you know, lockdown, etc. And I think during that time, it wasn't a case of let's close, you know, let's close our doors and then figure this stuff out, you know, once we start to reopen. It was really driving that strategic intent during that period, and I think that led to a real consensus from the exec, from the senior leadership team, through our vision, working collectively with the likes of HR and technology, to really build a foundation to say, look, we know that this is what we need to do. We need to move with the times. We need to, you know, we need to forecast where we want to be as a business post this COVID, sort of period, and then from that is really build upon that. So to answer your question, yes, the consistency is a challenge, but the core focus doesn't change. It's about ensuring that we create a world-class environment for our people to really innovate, you know, drive sort of business performance, and really be the employer of choice. And that's part of the great place to work kind of initiative that we've been part of for the last few years. And we're all singing from the same hymn sheet, and so that makes it easier to go back to base when there are changes. Example, COVID, you know, economic downturn, etc. We can always go back to that core set of principles.
I think it's really interesting having been to a few of your buildings, you know, and seen the way that you've transformed dramatically. It sits in real contrast to some of our other clients that we talk to, you know, and other companies that we know, where they've kind of struggled. And I think sometimes it's at a leadership level where they struggle to adapt to this change, and it's almost like a mistrust, you know, of the employee, which just builds resentment, you know. And I think the way you guys have done it's a real shining example, and it's one of the things I want to move on to next, actually, because some of the things you've achieved, I think that they deserve to be highlighted. So as I understand it, at Experian, you've literally smashed your targets in pursuit of becoming a carbon neutral company, and you're now working towards moving closer to net zero status, which is a fantastic outcome. What metric in particular, Zaid, do you watch out for, and which ones do you think you're most proud of?
There's and I thank you for the kind feedback. You know, there's been a whole raft of, you know, our teams and you know, collection of kind of sub teams and working with different different parts of the business to make that a reality. So yeah, just wanted to kind of land that in you know, in this segment. You know, personally, I feel truly blessed to be part of an organization that has truly embraced how much we wanted, you know, to really, you know, commit to this transformation program, and you know, really drive towards some of those numbers that you've mentioned there. I mean, that's meant quite a bit of buy-in and actually trusting in the overall strategy. I mean, pre-COVID, just to land this stat, we had more desks than people, and so now moving into this hybrid way of working, we're really right-sizing that. And we always say it's test and learn. You know, there are the principles there, but those principles can always be challenged and can always be you know, reviewed, because we want to make sure that we're evolving, as you rightly said earlier, to demands of our business. The metric that I'm most proud of is probably occupancy. You know, pre-COVID, our average occupancy across the whole organization, I'm in the UK, and I'll speak to UK and I for now, just because that was a focus of this of this particular program, and that is extended out towards Europe, was 52%. And at the moment, we've surpassed our pre-COVID occupancy levels, and they're trending sort of between 60 to 70% in our main core site. So that means that, people, do want to come back to the office, and it's not just about bringing people back in, but they're finding meaning and value, really being in that environment. So that's the one I'm most proud of, I would say.
I think it's an amazing achievement, and I've seen so many companies that have tried to use this change, this shift in working patterns, to just kind of look at it as an opportunity to cut costs, and have just kind of shaved off chunks of their real estate in kind of key urban areas. And to me, that really impacts younger employees more than anybody. A lot of the time it's the people that are able to stay at home and work, the more senior execs that are set up to work from home, larger houses, probably a dedicated office, who are being given the opportunity to come into the office. And it's the very people who need it quite often who are living and working in the same space. You hear these tales of people working around the kitchen table, and kind of taking their slot for their calls through the day, and then working in their bedroom. It must be a nightmare. And it feels to me like that the balance is all wrong. And I think you guys are really setting the standard. While the number of available desks in your buildings has obviously reduced since this consolidation drive began, as you said, actual building occupancy is up dramatically, and even pre-COVID, which is amazing. So I understand that you've got an average of 70 to 80% in sites like the Nottingham main office. So what are people coming in to use the offices for, Zaid?
So it's a real mixture. I think you're right. I think in terms of our demographic is vast in terms of our organisation, and sort of regardless of where you sit in those demographic groups, I think ensuring that we cater for different role types and different team types was really crucial. So what I mean by that was, in future of work, we categorized everyone in 4 categories. So you had hub for those that wanted to be in the office 5 days a week, hybrid, home, and roam being those individuals that worked that work on the field, and so would come into the office maybe 10-20% of the time. Now, within those categories, we went a further level down to really start to understand how do people work. So you've got finance, and those finance individuals work in a very different manner to, say, someone in the go-to-market team, and then really looking at our developer teams and how they work. So some people work in a team of 6, some people work individually, some people work in a kind of larger setting, some people work, in a they call it a sprint, and I learned quite a bit from this in terms of developing, which I'm sure is second to none in your world, Gerry. People do sprints in a matter of weeks, and so we really listened. I think was the key thing for us to see how people worked. How do we need to adapt our offices to make sure that we're catering for those different role types and those different work types? And I think we're still learning. I'm never going to say that we've hit it on the head. And I think it is. Our occupancy levels do reflect that people are coming in, but we can absolutely do more, right? To make sure we're really honing that down. And the key things that people asked for really surprised me. I mean, we had a number of different workshops, kind of set up. And what people asked for was, I need a whiteboard. I need a screen. I need tech that just works. And this stuff isn't really rocket science, I would say, but making sure that those everyday items, because sometimes in real estate you can get really stuck into, I need to make an office look really really glamorous for people to come in, but if there's no whiteboard or the tech's not working, quickly people won't be coming in. So I think those are the key nuggets that I think that we try to introduce.
I think for a long time people put more emphasis on football tables and slides and soft seating areas and all that kind of stuff. And like you say, if you go into a meeting room and the VC doesn't work, or there's no whiteboard, or the whiteboard doesn't function, it's useless to you. But I do think also people like that whole thing of collaboration. I know a lot of pals of mine who've got offices tend to find their employees like to come in on Thursdays because they all like to meet up for a beer after work, and there's There's nothing wrong with that, right? That's all part of the social cohesion of any community, any business, whatever it might be. So it's totally understood. So it's great to hear, all of these initiatives and listening to the people telling you things that will make their working lives better. I think it's so important. So to that note, with use cases for buildings now all about softer stuff, like collaboration, innovation, a sense of purpose, connection and belonging, all of those things that are sort of difficult to set targets for and measure. What advice can you offer to your peers in other organizations looking to build their own transformation projects in terms of sort of aims and objectives, things that have worked for you guys?
I think every business is different. I think that's one thing that I've worked for a few businesses in my past, and I think every culture is different, and the work is different, the ethos or the strategy. And I think really start from what is the business strategy, what is the HR strategy, what's the technology strategy, what's the individual BUs. And I think really understanding that, and I will say that again, we're still learning this, but that's been the real game changer. In some businesses that I've worked, real estate really sits in isolation, and it's a if it's too hot, too cold, let's go to real estate. That's what they're there for. And I think for us, we've really, business has given us a license to really show our vision and how we can work collaboratively to meet that vision collectively. And I think, it's a journey. It's a change management piece as well. And one thing I think that we had to take on that role was around change management. I mean, closing a building or refitting, it's difficult, but it's part of our world. Trying to change people's mindset around, well, okay, we're going to consolidate and we're going to refit and we're going to move you into here, but actually it's going to be so much better for you. That's the bit that I think cultural change was the hardest thing for us. Some people were used to having a plant pot and a picture of their family on their table. Now we don't have that. We've got a hybrid way of working. And I think really bringing people along that journey to say, yeah, I understand what you're losing, but this is what you're going to be gaining, is has been the real difficulty to win the hearts and minds of people. And genuinely, I think some people feel transformation is done to them and not with them. And I think that's really the key. And last piece I will just add, and I'm sure you'll come onto this, is Cloudbooking has been the real key to that change. I mean, if you think about that example I've given you around the plant pot and the picture, people asking questions. Well, what do I do? How do I know? Do I get a desk? I used to sit here, and I think, I know that we're kind of talking broadly here, but I think our partnership and genuinely our partnership has really helped us massively to help sell this vision and this this kind of strategic viewpoint around how we're going to digitize our workplace and make this better for our people.
Because I've always been an advocate for this school of thought, which when you say it to people, they kind of understand straight away, instinctively what you're on about. But as you said, that the world of people saying, this is my desk, this is where I sit, and with the plant pot on the picture and all that stuff, something we've talked about on previous occasions. I think it's not about that. It's about the community. It's about the people that are around them, and where they want to be is with the people that they work with all the time. So I think any kind of smart new approach to working has to recognize those cultural factors. Whenever I've asked people in the past, well, okay, you can keep your desk and your plant pot and all the rest of it, but I'm going to move all your pals 2 floors below you. So what do you want to do now? And it's always, well, I kind of really want to go with them, and that makes sense. But it's the world that you guys are in that intrigues me, because finance companies, it's a sector with more of a kind of hierarchical approach to leadership and to management. It's very traditional. So what new and still emerging responsibilities, I guess, do large enterprise companies in your sector now have towards their employees, the employee experience and the culture? How have you seen that shift? because it's, as I say, a lot of the staff must be from similar environments to those I've probably quite crudely described in that question.
Yeah. I mean, I've got to say, I mean, one thing I want to say about Experian is the average tenure of employees that are here are the longest I've ever been, and I'm not just saying that. That's a genuine fact from me. I think the key word that that, as you were kind of summarizing there, is empowerment. Our leadership have empowered those leaders to be leaders, and I think that gives a sense of purpose, and it gives a sense of ownership of the strategy. I think from a real estate standpoint and from other parts of the business, leadership have said, well, actually, you're the SME, you're the expert here. We really want to hear from you. And I think that's been a real cultural change for us in the last, I mean, since I've been here, to be fair, because I've been here for 3 years. And, there's a genuine drive to really want to be number one in our sector and to really be the employee of choice. And with that has come, I really take my hats off to everyone involved, because it's not I can sit in my world and say we want to be world class, but if no one else is listening, it's going to be very difficult to achieve that, right? And even with our partners like yourself, Gerry, and other partners have really come along to help us, right? So yeah, I mean, even though we're in the fintech world, I think the fintech world has gone through a dramatic amount of change if you look all around us. And I think change is the only constant. I think in our world, obviously now with kind of AI, there was has been discussions internally around that. So I think it's a moving target, and I think most people in our business, if not all, are very comfortable with that, and it's really just being really agile to the environment.
Okay, thanks, Zaid. Because you've touched on a couple of times, how partners have helped you with it. So how have partnerships with companies like Cloudbooking impacted on your understanding and helped you to address the challenges we've been discussing? You faced when you arrived in the midst of all this craziness.
Yeah, and and again, from a genuine standpoint, we couldn't have executed on some of the programs, if not all of them, without having a backbone in terms of Cloudbooking. I see Cloudbooking as less as a tool, but more as an enabler to some of these visions and strategic intents. When you look at we look at trying to sell, and I use it in inverted commas to say to a team, well, look, you had, I don't know, 100 desks. Now you're going to have, say, 40. That's a tough sell, so to speak. But when you start to digitize it and you say, well, look, here's the employee experience, it's like booking a cinema seat. We even announced this as part of our UK all hands, and our exec team started to talk about this, and people started to get behind it. And I think people started to understand, well, okay, it's not about what I'm losing. As I mentioned before, it's about what I'm gaining, and you're gaining a better environment. And I think Cloudbooking have been with us from the very beginning. I'd like to say, Gerry, through thick and thin. I mean, there's been a lot of change in our business that you've been, you and your team have been extremely agile around. We've dramatically changed, the landscape of our sort of real estate. You mentioned some of the numbers there, and I think that's impacted Cloudbooking in terms of how we refitted our offices, how many sites, how many seats, the reconfiguration of our sites, and constantly working with us and sort of beside us, I think has been really key. So Cloudbooking has almost felt like an extension of us in a way. And when we talk about transformation, the few key components are people like Cloudbooking, our service provider, in terms of offering the services and really packaging that up into one core message to say, our focus is on the employee experience. As soon as you sort of wake up, or 2 weeks in advance, you can plan where you're going to be. And I think that's been a real game changer for our business.
Wow, I'm really delighted to hear you say those kind words. So thank you so much, and I'll pass those comments on to the team. It's all their hard work every day at the end of the day that matters. So what are the next stage challenges you think that Experian might face with a view to the continued optimization of your real estate? And how do you think companies like Cloudbooking can help and continue to be of valuable support in that endeavour?
I think it's now moving into a stage of how do we enhance that experience, and cloud booking has been a real basis of how we think about booking desks and forward planning and ensuring that people have the right level of space. I think now it's about further looking at that square footage and understanding, well, what sort of occupancy are we receiving in certain sites? And I think we started to discuss this around, well, if there's certain seats that aren't being utilized as others, is there a reason? I think you gave the kind example around, well, the sun sets and hits, and I think that's the next level of detail that I think that in terms of the reporting, which I know you and your team have been working really hard on, in terms of that granular data around how neighborhoods are being occupied, how wider groups are being occupied, what does the regions look like? And I think that reporting is key. I think secondly is around around communication in terms of the actual actual system, and how we integrate some of those messages into one core platform. And I think that's one thing I'd love to discuss kind of further, and how we can look to do that and actually be instead of seeing cloud booking as a cloud booking app, how do we see it as an Experian app, and really go to the next level of customization in terms of making that a unique experience.
Love it. Okay, I'm definitely up for that journey with you, that's for sure. Zaid, it's been a real pleasure, and we're really proud to be a key part of Experian's journey in terms of you guys blossoming into the kind of business that you've become over the last few years. It's remarkable progress in such a short period of time. As I say, we're delighted to have played a small part in helping you to achieve it. So, and yeah, thanks again for today. It's been great chatting with you. Really appreciate it, and look forward to catching up with you on the next one.